Mm-hmm.
Oh Lord, I need to fix that. And then there we go. Hi everybody. I'm Tori, and I'm here with Dan Zirk, aka Luca, to talk about the state of Twitter and kind of how things are going lately. Because a lot of things have changed on Twitter, and I feel like a lot of people in my timeline have been panicking as far as the state of it. So first off, Luca, what pronouns do you use, and introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Luca. I use the pronouns he, him. I come from Italy. I study international studies. I'm very close to graduate. And I've been keeping up with information about what's going on with Twitter, especially thanks to intelligence services and journalists in the past month or so.
Awesome. And what pronouns do you use?
He, him.
He, him.
Said this.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Don't worry, you're fine.
All right. Well, nice to have you on, Luca. So we're going to be talking about Twitter. So first, what are your overall thoughts on the Elon acquisition of Twitter? Just overall.
Overall speaking, it's a clear attempt at trying to be funny by Elon. Clearly failed. So there isn't much to say.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think that when he originally bought it, he was like more so joking. I don't think he actually like figured that he would be able to buy it. I think he thought that he could get out of it, and then once he was held to the flames a little bit, I feel like he realized he was being forced to do it.
Well, I remember reading an article 2 days ago that mentioned about how he felt like he was forced to buy it. Now, given the fact that we cannot for sure believe what he says for obvious reasons, we have to take whatever he says with a pinch of salt.
Mm-hmm.
Still, that would make kind of sense considering his actions and about how he has been dealing with the overall site up until now.
One thing too is the financial state of Twitter has just been like, I really feel like in the gutter. A lot of advertisers left because it really seems like he started making this website like a safe haven for neo-Nazis and transphobes and just the worst people. And if you're an advertiser, you don't want to put your content on there. So it's like he bought the platform for so much money, and he's done nothing but like drive down the value repeatedly over and over again.
Well, absolutely. This is what has been happening in the past months. Between cutting the number of employees working at Twitter, between the fact that a lot of the advertisers have been going away, as you've mentioned, and the fact that a lot of users are not buying Twitter Blue, but we'll get that later. This platform is on a track course to absolute disaster.
Yeah, I agree. So first, we're going to be going into the bad changes to Twitter. So I think first we should talk about like the algorithm changes. And so it really feels like Twitter is different every week. It's not consistent. The platform, the way that it works is constantly changing. My content seems to be doing well, but I think that's mostly because right now Elon is boosting political Twitter. So like everyone, a lot of people that I've talked to say that their entire timeline is just all politics. And it's been that way for a while. Like he's made some edits to the algorithm to change things, but it really feels like the overall theme is increasing the amount of politics people see on their timeline. What do you think about that?
I wouldn't see this update much about politics, but rather about replies, because I've been seeing a lot of people. You know how usually people try to flirt with each other on pictures of each other and such. Especially those comments, for example, I've been seeing many comments like those appearing on my timeline for up to 2 hours because they were constantly going back and forth and they would constantly appear. That's basically the issue. The issue right now is that replies and replies to the replies are massively boosted accordingly to some sources. As a result, what you may think it's a politics aimed update, that's only because most of the times politics are the subject of discussion. As such, they will require more replies and back and forth. But like in general, it's damaging anyone really because I've seen many people that, like for example, people that do OnlyFans or Fansly. I've been seeing them; they have been suffering the most, and with pictures, videos, and such getting much less boosting in the algorithm, according to some sources, of course, because it isn't always 100% clear what the algorithm is doing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's been changing so often, you know.
Yeah.
And the recurring theme that I've seen is I think that Elon is trying to fit the algorithm around political discussion being boosted, and I feel like he's made little changes here and there for that. Because like the boost that I've had in my own content is not normal. I'm 100% being boosted by whatever changes Elon has made to his algorithm. And it's really weird to see like my content doing well, but seeing other people that do pretty much the same content they've been doing for a while and have been popular just suddenly lose all their traction. And I really feel like the issue I have is that what's nice about Twitter as a platform is the variety. Like I can look and see gaming niche interests. I can look and I can see, I don't know, pictures of friends and stuff that I like. I can see political content. There's a variety of content to view. And what's happening right now is the only content that is being put forward is this like political content or like people that have Twitter Blue that I don't care about, you know? And I just feel like the platform itself is getting so much worse. And I have heard so many people tell me that they've been thinking of leaving the platform entirely because like, well, their job's tied to it and it's not working anymore. We did see 2 NPR leave. NPR left the platform entirely. What did you think about that, NPR leaving?
Well, it's depend. There are 2 main lines of thought of this because I talked about this with someone else already in the past. One line of thought goes that the fact that NPR got labeled as a state-funded business is not a bad thing because they do receive funding from the state, even if very little. So by going by this logic, these kind of the people who think like this argue that every single business on Twitter should be labeled like that. Should they actually receive funding, which is either no one or all logic. I'm more of the opinion that there needs to be a strong distinction between NPR and RT News, for example. RT News, for those that don't know, is Russia Today News, which is basically a news outlet used by Russia for obvious propaganda motives. It has been censored in the entirety of Europe, as a matter of fact, following the invasion to Ukraine. And it has been labeled as like state-funded media, but that was already prior to the acquisition of Twitter by Musk. Right now, what Musk is doing is blurring the lines of what does state-funded media mean when you have like the New York Times without a checkmark, for example, right now for some reason, and NPR instead getting say fund. It seems like a lot of petty actions with New York Times being taken away the check mark, which didn't get taken away by some legacy accounts, and instead NPR being treated as state funded like it was RT News. kind of seems like a series of petty actions done just to prove a point. What that point
Yeah.
is unclear.
I think that I really think that what Musk is doing is really going off the cuff. I don't think there's a clear pattern to really anything he's been doing. He's just been like winging it the entire time. And I think the NPR move is just because he doesn't like NPR. And that's it. Like, I just think he's really, really petty and just decided, hey, it's time to do this. But the problem is when you get publications like NPR to just drop all stuff on Twitter, that is a problem. Because
Absolutely.
you can see other journalists and other like media platforms like NPR just start dropping too. And then suddenly it's a domino effect where, oh, well, the only reason, say, if I was a journalist on this platform is to promote my work and there's not a lot of other people on here doing that now, you go away. So I really feel like a lot of the actions he's been doing by being petty is just further like fucking himself out of money, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the thing that I said to you before, which this platform is on a track course to disaster. Because unless Twitter finds some kind of other ways of funding itself, it's losing a lot of money right now. With Twitter Blue not having any success for obvious reasons, advertisers leaving the platform, and the users as well leaving the platform, it's honestly difficult to watch the future of Twitter in a positive light.
And someone in chat actually said too that the National Weather Service can no longer post automated warnings.
Oh yeah, the thing
because
about
of the
Twitter API.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a good change to talk about that we can go into next. I think that was a bad change. Like the API change, in my opinion, was insane because if I recall correctly, the current Twitter app was actually like someone like designed that and made it, and then Twitter just sort of like adopted it. And then there's also a plethora of other tools that have been made, like TweetDeck. There's several apps on the App Store that people use. Like one of the cool things about Twitter, and the reason why it showed Twitter for iPhone or Twitter for TweetDeck, that was to give credit to the people that worked on those platforms. And I think having something open like that where people can design things and make the platform better and apply those tools is something that's important. And it really feels like Elon, like, he's so desperate for money, but he doesn't realize the things that he needs to do to make the platform profitable.
The point is that he's so I don't know if you know this, but already prior to the acquisition of Twitter officially, Musk already kind of made his plans about Twitter public, and he already said already in June 2022, if I remember correctly, or July, or something along those lines, that the focus was on making Twitter a super app. A super app like WeChat in China, an app that could basically do anything. The very fact that Musk is monetizing every single aspect of it, almost basically, we're like 1 inch away from also monetizing the number of tweets you can make in a day. Like the fact that Musk is basically monetizing every possible thing that can come up in your mind, it's proof of that direction. He just wants to make everything pay and like that you have to pay for. And I remember also reading an article saying that the prices for the Twitter API are absolutely insane as well.
Yeah, the number that someone said like $49,000 or something like that a month. I'm not sure if that's just for the really, really big businesses, but that like a lot of these little tools that people have made are like small individual people. There's no way that they can afford that.
Yeah, exactly. Like for example, some time ago, I thought about deleting my entire history like with Redact, and then I remember, wait, Redact doesn't fucking work anymore.
Yep, nope. A lot of those tools don't work anymore, and it's really unfortunate. Because some of those tools too were very useful for like stopping harassment, for example. Like there were several times where I would get dogpiled by like neo-Nazis or huge transphobe accounts, and I could just one click just block all those people, be good, and now you pretty much just have to deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. But this Nazi problem you mentioned is just part of a bigger issue that Twitter has been going for, which is the increased number of hate speech on the platform.
Yeah, the we'll get to hate speech in a second, but also one thing I want to mention is the view counter. I feel like the view counter is something that genuinely causes people brainworms, and I think it's actually one of like the worst additions that he's added. Because like genuinely, like not when I would before that change was made, when I would look at my timeline, I wouldn't really care what other people are their views were, and I still don't, but there are a lot of people that do now because they can see how other people's posts are doing. And I feel like, excuse me, it makes people self-conscious of how their posts are doing. So I think overall, like it's like a combined, like the algorithm changed, there's a view counter now, a lot of he hasn't really added anything to the platform. He's kind of just placed things behind a paywall with Twitter Blue and boosting engagement through it. And I just feel like overall the vibe of Twitter right now is negative because of literally everything that he's done.
Well, if you remember correctly, Musk put originally the views update to prove a point. He wanted to show everyone that the majority of people don't actually interact with your posts. But like, okay, you proved their point. Remove it now. But like, generally, yes, I can safely tell you this. Like, I can say for certain, but this has been touching me and many other people in terms of views. I've always struggled a lot with the algorithm for reasons to me, but I have no clue for. And the view counter actually proved to me that people actually don't see my posts. I received many times comments of people saying, "Hey, I don't see your posts anymore," even though I was not shadow banned at the time. I now have full confirmation that people genuinely don't receive my posts. So there's really nothing I can do besides posting into the void. But going back to a comment I saw in the chat by James is the founder. My honest recommendation is that if you're being dogpiled, just try to leave a conversation. There is a setting that allows you to do that. Just leave a conversation. Where even if you muted every single individual in the thread, it's going to take you much more time. Just leave a conversation, take care of your mental health, honestly.
Yeah, I usually leave conversation, or I just mute the conversation. Either or really works. And one thing too with a lot of just harassment in general on the platform is usually engaging with the people makes everything 10 times worse. Now I do it because I'm used to getting like hundreds, thousands of angry people in my replies. So I've just kind of like mentally turn off my brain when I look at some of these comments. But for a lot of smaller accounts, the increase in transphobia has made like the site way more toxic to be on, especially for trans people, because the rhetoric of trans stuff, anti-trans stuff is increasing, and people in their timeline just see nonstop transphobia all day.
Yeah, the platform has become more transphobic in practice. Remember the original For You setting by Musk was that you would be shown opinions from accounts that would disagree with you. That was the original intention. But here's the thing. The For You bar is absolutely messed up because if you do the mistake of even trying to fight against the rhetoric that these people use, the For You tab and algorithm is going to recognize that, hey, you interacted with that post. As such, I'm going to show you more of that content. So the result is that if you ever try to fight back against it because you may be of the opinion that you need to fight back against it, but you're still touched by it for obvious reasons. You're basically hurting yourself, and the only real strategy to stop seeing this content is to just fall even deeper into an echo chamber by completely not interacting with it all. So basically, the For You tab right now has become an even stronger echo chamber producer than it was compared to the past.
Yeah, and the thing is too is trying to interact outside the niche circle that you're in is like impossible because you get so deboosted. So like for example, I'm on political / trans activist Twitter. That's the circle that I'm in. If I try engaging with like video game content or posting selfies or you know what I mean, like of that nature, like I wouldn't get much interactions because of the way that Elon has favored the algorithm of it's like once it figures out what you're posting in, it is really hard to go outside of that at all.
Look, I'll give you an example of what I mean. All right. I made a post 12 hours ago, so today on quotes, where I said just I hate Twitter, I hate Twitter in relation to the Stalin post. Okay, that post got 4,665 views. Okay, I made a tweet 7 hours ago, which was about Final Fantasy 12. It got 665 views, and I've got a total of 10,900 followers. Now you can say 10,000 of them are bots. Okay, that's fine. Still, 300 of those 900 didn't receive my post, and I'm proving you here with an example. What happens to me is sometimes multiplied in effect for some people I know, especially those that use Twitter as a platform to then boost their other sites, like for example Patreon, for example Twitter, Patreon, Fansly, and all of that. So in general, besides a few accounts like Cattered, there was this other guy that I follow, which gets a lot of likes, and like other accounts that appear a lot on the timeline, like for example Shitpost Gateway. Besides those accounts, it's like borderline impossible to go viral anymore for many people.
Yeah, well, yeah. Like I feel like I've been really lucky with my account because I'm just still getting boosted like crazy, and I don't really know why. But I see a lot of people that are getting suppressed, especially people that do stuff like OnlyFans or that kind of content.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to sound specific discriminatory to them because there are also other examples like artists. But yeah, especially OnlyFans models, as I see in the comment sections, are being specifically affected by this.
Yeah, so we'll move on now to hate speech. I feel like it was really funny when Musk brought up that one little graph. He's like, look, hate speech is the lowest it's ever been. And it's like, okay, you probably filtered something out, which is transphobia. Because transphobia is the worst it has ever been on this platform. Ever. Like, we are at a time where there is an active, like, attempted genocide of trans people within the United States. You have people having to literally flee their homes. And the largest social media platform just allows people to like laugh, poke fingers at this happening, advocate for like literal genocide of transgender people all the time on the platform. And meanwhile, you say one mean thing to defend yourself and you get suspended or timed out. It's like, it is ridiculous how bad the platform has gotten so quickly since Musk came over.
Absolutely. So, before we actually enter the stream, people, I said it to Tori how dumb I am for not actually bookmarking anything. for once, I actually bookmarked something, and that was a study by Brianna, Brianna, who actually shared. I'm going to post the link of the study in the comment section on on your Discord, Tori, so you can like spam it on your chat, because I'm currently watching your stream with my real life account and I don't want to get oxed myself. But like in shorts, what the study has shown is that both the number of bots, both hate speech, and also like the number of hateful accounts has not been reduced in any way. As a matter of fact, they have increased. All of these things have increased. So it's really important to understand that like right now, there are quite literally, there was this post that I saw, someone getting unsuspended for just saying, but I was suspended for my right-wing beliefs. So, you know, there's that going on as well. And
I really hate where Twitter has gone. I feel like it was in such a good place before Musk took over. Like, genuinely, I think the platform was at the best it's been in a while before he took over. And I really feel like his greed, like, to try making more money has fucked him. And then now he's trying to play favoritism to the people that he somewhat likes and sees continuing to get views, which is a lot of horrible people like neo-Nazis and transphobes and everything else. And by continuing to cater to those people and increasing the hate speech, he further ruins his own like money, because no one wants to advertise on a platform like this.
Yeah, and what you're saying is absolutely right. It's objectively right. And as a matter of fact, as I see in the comment section, Plant said, I'm so annoyed that there is no real alternative for Twitter. The very reason why Musk is also allowed to do the mess he's doing is because there really isn't any alternative for Twitter. There isn't any competition. There isn't any other site that is putting Twitter into pressuring for good updates. There is nothing. Like Facebook has also opened their own subscription program, and it's also plagued with issues. Instagram is mainly a photo application, and has also started its own payment system, a subscription system. And what else does it remain? There was the talk of Mastodon some time ago, but Mastodon also failed miserably because of how confusionary it is as a site, and it's not centralized in any way. So it becomes a lot like Discord, a lot of many small servers, but like you don't have Twitter, you have just Discord 2.0.
Yeah.
And I feel like the big oh, by the way, I see the chat saying Zelfi utterly said, didn't Gleaner get sus this morning? I know you're going to be extremely happy to hear this, but his account got reinstated, so you're free to bully him as you please again.
But yeah, the hate speech has been getting just vastly worse, and I feel like that's part of the reason why the vibe on Twitter isn't really good, because people just see that negativity blasted onto their timeline so often. And I've even had people reach out to me because I cover a lot of that content. But I cover that content because that online content, we have to directly talk against it. That's actually been one of the most frustrating things, is like, it sucks because of the way the algorithm is, but we have to speak out against this rhetoric, because a lot of normies are going to be looking at Twitter and seeing this stuff on their timelines, and we have to have some type of argument against it, you know?
Completely agreed.
It sucks. Like, is it fun to have to engage with basically horrid stuff from bigots all the time? No, but it has gotten to a point where very important like people are now noticing. And a good thing recently was Mr. Beast defending Chris, who just came out as believe is gender non-conforming and started HRT, which is great. I'm happy for them. But seeing Mr. Beast say, I'm getting really pissed off at this transphobia, it's because these people have seen this all the time, and then they met a trans person and they're like, they're like, whoa, okay, so these people are just like out there, like way out there. Why is this allowed on here? And having normies be able to understand and process that is really important, especially for someone of like Mr. Beast's size, who has like literal millions of people that watch him.
Yeah, look, when you approach Twitter right now as a trans person, you have a binary in front of you. You can either completely isolate yourself from politics, which is what a mutual of mine has done. They have unfollowed me by saying simply that they want to stop pursuing political accounts, which is a completely valid choice. And that is, as I said, one of the two choices. The other choice is interact with the mess that is Twitter right now and try to basically fight against the waves of negativity that appear. I am personally more inclined towards one of the two choices. The point is that these are the two choices. And people just have to take them, whether they like it or not. There is a third choice, which is being a part of a problem, but hey, that is, of course, an obvious thing, so I'm not going to mention it. But like in general, I can safely tell you, I'm not going to judge anybody for taking any choice.
Yeah, I won't either. I think for a lot of people, it's engaging with that type of content can be damaging to your mental health. I've just been so used to getting so much shit on Twitter in general that it's become normal for me to have that. Mm-hmm. So, it's not something that really bothers me much anymore, but it does for a lot of people. What we'll move on to now, though, is misinformation. Mm-hmm. Misinformation, I feel like, is flourishing on Twitter. The community notes, I will say, community notes has caught some of the stuff that I've seen come up, but it hasn't caught everything. And I feel like some blatant misinformation, especially vaccine stuff, is really, really bad on Twitter. Like, it's just blatantly just allowed to lie about vaccines working and their efficacy, just everything.
Yeah, so in general, throughout the 2 years and a half that I've been active on Twitter, I can say I've been always a very strong advocate against misinformation of any kind, especially because after the Brexit election happened and there was a journalist that made a study about it. There's a small parenthesis, but basically they showed how an entire city that was kept alive by the European Union, and there were signs everywhere on the road saying how much the EU funds this city. Despite all of this, because of a massive amount of fake news on Facebook, over 64% of the population of that city succumbed to fake news and voted to leave the EU with fake news like they were being assaulted by immigrants, and the actual immigrant in that city was a Polish woman which approached the city already 30 years prior. But the problem with misinformation is that it's just genuinely jeopardizing our good well-being. It's also jeopardizing minorities as a result as well, especially especially LGBTQIA plus related minorities are being hurt the most by misinformation. And also, it's absurd how effective it is around conservative circles.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things, I really feel like all the misinformation around trans issues are just nothing really happens at all. Like, the amount of times I keep seeing Republicans say that puberty blockers are chemical castration drugs.
Yeah.
And that is blatantly false. They've been using cis kids for so long and no one cared. till trans kids got them. And it's because they just hate trans people. That's it. The people that spread that type of misinformation, they hate you.
Yeah.
That's the reason why they say it, is they just hate you. And the thing is on a platform, that type of hatred cannot be allowed to flourish and spread so much information because it causes harm of that group. We're seeing Matt Walsh on Twitter, Ben Shapiro, you know, a lot of these really, really big transphobic accounts spread this misinformation. It reaches millions of people. It pushes the rhetoric even more. You see senators, House reps see it, and they go ahead and pass legislation that is based on a falsehood. And this type of stuff should not be allowed on this platform, like blatant misinformation like that.
Yeah, I completely agree. The solution would be to make more people give access to community notes. The issue is that community notes is only given to Twitter Blue. So we're back to square one. Also, to address a small comment I saw, Zelfie Auto is saying, this circles back into the API issue, misinformation networks can no longer be tracked. I retweeted, I think 2 hours ago, a post that basically talked about how a group of journalists found a misinformation network of an ex-US soldier that was faking to be a woman from the Donbass region and fooled thousands of conservative pundits. But that's just, and the jumps they had to go through to find this information and the network that was behind it, it was absurd. But regardless of that, I actually wanted to make a small parenthesis in relation to only people with blue having access to community notes. We should really talk also about how much Twitter Blue actually fucking costs.
It's been increasing. So I remember when I bought Twitter Blue originally, it was like $2 or $3. It was like literally the cost of a cup of coffee at Starbucks. It was less than that. And there was cool features with it that were worth buying. So one of the features was ad-free articles, which was very useful as a political account to be able to just like open an article on Twitter, not deal with ads and just view them. Some of the little like customizing colors and things like that, little things for like a few dollars, it was useful to me. But now it really seems like he's just turned Twitter Blue into a way like, you know, oh, well, if you're not a bot, you're going to spend $15 a month or something like that on Twitter Blue. And like the bigger accounts will spend money on Twitter Blue because, well, part of it for some people, it's their job. If you do activism, you want your activism to be seen by people. But your average everyday user has literally zero incentive to really buy Blue. Like for larger accounts, I think it makes sense. But if you're a small account, like there's really no point in having it.
Yeah, which is why then you find articles like this that says Twitter Blue subscription failing, less than 5% conversion rate. Like we're talking about the crumbs of bread that are subscribing, and the majority of those that subscribe are also not the major creators.
Yeah. I really feel like Blue is probably one of the dumbest things that he did in terms of change. He literally would have done better for the platform financially if he changed literally nothing and just took over the platform. Like genuinely, if he didn't fire anybody, he just left all of the current leadership that was there and people and just was like, I own the company now. He probably would have been way better off.
Yeah. I want to give you an example of what I'm saying, okay? For starters, the prices are completely fucked all around. For example, there are different pricings for phone and web, which makes no sense. I personally don't know this still. I don't know if you pay on web, you also get it on phone. I'm not sure of this.
It does work vice versa. I've tested that.
Okay, but like for example, a lot of countries don't have actual conversion rates that make any sense. Like like on iOS and Android pricing, even in the United States for both it's $11. Okay, UK £11, Canada $15, Australia $19, New Zealand $19, and then the entirety of Europe is $11. What? Like last I checked, the euro is like it should be much cheaper in terms of euro because 11 euros are a lot more than $11.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am paying, like if I pay the full price, I would pay around 130 euros a year. And considering I don't have any kind of income because I'm still a student, kind of impossible for
Mm-hmm.
me.
Yeah. All right. So the next thing to talk about is the subscribers feature, which is basically just super follows. So Elon pushed this out recently. And what this is do you know, like next to people's little follow button, there's that purple little super follow thing, but now says subscriber. What Elon is trying to do is push exclusive tweets. That's his next scheme to make money. Is you can donate to someone like $3, $5, etc., and you get access to private tweets that only you can see. And this is really, really dumb.
Honestly, the only thing one can do is point and laugh.
Like what this could have been implemented to, which would have been better, is just like, hey, if you like this user, you can donate to them. And it like part of it goes to Twitter for upkeep. Like that would be cool.
And that is already present because there is already a donation function. Like at best, you could have done something like that YouTube does, whereby you can give content creators, or at least Twitter users, the ability to basically create exclusive content, but in a like for example emotes or like things like that they can use when commenting or interacting with a user. Like that would have made sense, but this way you're just doing another dumb action to try and gather some money, but it's not going to work.
Yeah, I think in general, the way that they've implemented, no one's really going to use it. I actually applied for it just to see what it looks like, and even I'm curious if they even approve me, and I don't think that they're going to, because I don't think that they want trans people to like make money on their platform, if I'm being completely honest. So I'm not expecting to hear back anything about that application.
Keep us updated on that.
Yeah, definitely. I mainly did it just to see if it works. I'm not going to be posting private tweets or anything like that to paid people. That's dumb. I would never do that. But okay, last thing we're going to end off here is the future. Where do you think Twitter is headed? Do you think it's going to get better? Do you think it's going to get worse?
I do think it's going to get worse because, as a matter of fact, right now I made a post 2 days ago about how Musk has been isolating himself more and more into an echo chamber.
Mm-hmm.
And when the very goddamn CEO of your social network is in an echo chamber, it's done. Like, almost like a half a year to say just pack it up. In my opinion, like in 6 months, we may actually be in a much better situation. But I genuinely believe that, like in the span of 6 months / a year, we're going to see Twitter either collapse or change in a way which will be impossible to use for the vast majority of users because it will be too extremely monetized.
So I think what's probably going to happen is that Elon is going to basically financially destroy himself trying to make Twitter work. And I think what probably is going to happen is that he's either going to sell the platform off, or that he's going to introduce someone, probably like right-leaning centrist type person, to control the platform, and then Twitter will kind of sort of go back to kind of what it was before, if not a tiny bit worse. That's kind of that's where I think the platform is probably going. I think that he either sells it off or he puts someone in power to take over for him.
You know why it won't happen? Because I don't know if you remember, but already when there was the incredible famous vote about whether he should step down or not. By the way, he still has to step down. Close parenthesis. During the vote and the following days, he said that he was searching for someone that could substitute him, right? But he said if were he to be substituted, was he to be substituted, he would just fall down to the technicians team, to the developer team. So basically, he's just still there. So basically, what would happen is that he would still be there. He would just find someone to take the heat of bad changes, but bad changes will still keep going. Which is why, in my opinion, right now, the only real possibility is for actually, unironically, for a new social platform to rise, similar to Twitter. And I'm unironically at this point close to begging for someone to make it, because it's only going to get worse, in my opinion.
I honestly don't see an alternative to Twitter coming up anytime soon. I think Twitter was one of those platforms that is just so unique in the way that it's built and done. And I also feel like it already has such a huge sense of community that's the main reason why people have stayed. Is because all my friends are here. If I leave to another platform, am I going to do as well there? I'm going to be like the only one there. There's no clear alternative, so people haven't really switched. And I don't know if there's going to be a clear alternative.
Absolutely, so. I feel like there isn't going to be an alternative soon, but I'm genuinely hoping someone is programming it. Because at this point, we're really talking about the fact that we are like one step away from having even tweets, a limit to daily tweets. Remember, yesterday there was supposed to come out, like the update about the For You section was supposed to come out. He said he would roll out a modified version of it, and that still hasn't come out of it. So I feel like as someone said, the fact that there isn't any certainty about Twitter is what's making many people considering leaving. And honestly, I've considered that myself many times, because sure, I may be the 0.01% of Twitter with 10,000 followers, but the majority of my followers don't see my posts anyways, for some reason that is beyond me. And even if they were to see my posts, I would have to see a lot of friends suffering because of low engagement. And it's honestly just a mess, to be fair, especially for people that need a healthy Twitter to work, quite literally.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's a good place to end off on. So we went almost 50 minutes, which was kind of about where I expected us to land. With all the topics that we had. So it's definitely really good speaking with you, and definitely want to speak with you again in the future on stream.
Of course, anytime, you know where to find me. I also want to thank you, especially for having me here. I truly thank you for the patience also. And I also want to thank chat for being, to participate into the discussion and being so nice. Thank you. Thanks to all of you from the bottom of my heart.
All right, so you can go ahead if you want and share socials or anything where people can find you and see your content.
I once again you should do it for me because I'm on my IRL account and I don't want to dox myself once again.
Okay.
This is
I just meant like your Twitter or
yeah.
stuff like
This is
that.
it. This is it.
Okay. So you can find Luca at Dan Zirk. Oh, I'm not going to be leaving yet, y'all. But so I went ahead and I threw his @ in there.
Thank you, everyone, and have a beautiful continue of the day, afternoon, or night, Tori. Stay safe.
Yeah, definitely. You stay safe too.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. So as far as what's going to be happening now, I'm going to be speaking with Haley the Alley Cat, who is a member of my Discord, who is a member in their state of Democratic Party leadership, and they're non-binary. So we're going to have a discussion with them and their experiences, and kind of that's like being a person who's non-binary and Dem leadership currently. So that's going to happen at 7. So we have about 10 minutes. What I am going to go ahead and do right now is go ahead and plug in a link to a GoFundMe that currently I'm organizing for Eden's Friends. What's happening is the Friends of Eden are going to be meeting up for a private memorial service, and some of the people are in different countries. So if you can share that on Twitter, donate, whatever, it would really be appreciated. What we're going to be doing, any extra funds will be donated to charity. So definitely appreciate y'all if you could share that. And yeah. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to play some music and just go ahead and sort of organize everything with Haley. So I'm going to put us on the Be Right Back screen and just play some music for y'all. So give me just a moment while I go ahead and work on doing that here. All right. That one. Hello, everybody. Just setting things up here real quick. Okay, that's there we go. I think that's about as good as I'm going to get it. Hello and welcome to the stream, everyone. We just got finished talking with Luca, and now we are talking with Haley, the alley cat. So first off, you can go ahead and introduce yourself and what pronouns you use.
So hi, I'm Haley. I use they them pronouns. I am a member of the governing committee of the Massachusetts Democratic Party, as well as the as of yesterday, actually, also now the vice president of Massachusetts College Democrats. So that is like the titles I hold. I think that titles in general, though, are not a good. I don't I don't like them. Because I understand the like reason why they are important to have, but I also like don't like that that's how politics operates. I know I tend to go to spaces and lead with those titles because I know it can get me into the door, but into doors that I wouldn't otherwise have. But like who I am as a person is I am a 20-year-old college student who is uh in a dorm room with a laptop on a wiggly table that I'm trying not to accidentally bump and just trying to like manage classes and a friend circle and also just like fight my university that's constantly um discriminating against me oftentimes in ways that they don't even know that they are. um and so it's just like a very difficult situation of trying to balance of political work and then all of my other obligations. But I go on Reddit, I go on Twitter, I'm a normal person. I just so happen to also uh, be obnoxious enough that I've been granted titles.
All right. So yeah, it's great to have you on. And we're going to start off with the first question what I have for you, which is going to be what got you involved in politics to go ahead and get into this?
Yeah, so I am non-binary and I grew up with incredibly uh right-wing religious parents who like are almost every single stereotype that you can think of in terms of bigotry and not accepting me and others. And that was very hard growing up. Um, and it really impacted my mental health. It still impacts my mental health to this day. I am nowhere close to having like recovered from all of those years, but I just read these Trevor Project stats and other studies from before the Trevor Project was doing its national survey. Um, and I see like the high levels of mental health issues, the high levels of depression, and I see the
Let me check Discord. People are posting in the general instead of the live chat. That's wonderful.
I open general because you said that, and the first thing I see is people sending messages about eating glue. This server is amazing.
That's funny.
It's genuinely very entertaining.
All right. Okay, it just wants to say it that way. That's fine. I'll go ahead and just do it this way. There we go. That's fine. All right, is back. Everyone sees us. I think that was probably a weird OBS issue. Is my guess.
Yeah, the funs of OBS.
Is back. All right, people are saying we're back. Alrighty.
Awesome.
All right. So we were talking about essentially the disappointment of, like, I guess Democrats not really going far enough in some instances for legislation to help trans people.
I mean,
The stream again. We will see. I want to see messages in chat before I go ahead and we start again.
what's the difference between live chat and stream discussion?
Stream discussion is something that can happen all the time. Where live chat's like I'm live and people are talking.
Okay.
Let me see if someone said still not up like 2 minutes ago, but I just started it. Where live chat's like, okay. I see myself up now, but I don't know how long that's going to go for. So we'll just take it as we go. So you were you were talking about how the state Democratic leadership seems to be a little disappointing, and there's a lot more that they could do in order to help trans people out.
So I think that national Democratic leadership is disappointing. I think that in my state, the Democratic Party has done a relatively good job. I think that we are doing a good job at Massachusetts is weird because we're one of the only states that has a full-time legislature, and so that comes with extra baggage that doesn't exist in other states. But like in general, like the solutions that we are to our problems aren't going to come from DC. My favorite example of this, I know I mentioned Wisconsin, but Nebraska. Nebraska is Republican trifecta. And it's one of the places that you would imagine, at least I would imagine, having some of the worst transphobic Republican bills that they can imagine. Because I don't trust any state's GOP. And yet that hasn't happened. And the reason why that hasn't happened was because of state reps taking advantage of their chamber's rules. I think Nebraska is the only one that's unicameral. So they have one chamber instead of two, like every other state.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so but that means it's like a House of Representatives with like all of the holders of like a Senate, and I don't know which one they actually call it. But they've had members of the chamber, the Democrats there, filibustering for the entire session, and so they just have not been able to pass transphobic laws. They haven't been able to pass any law, actually. The entire legislature has been on filibuster for the past several months. Um, it's just like mad props to them. But that happens because there are local Democrats who have faith in their local community supporting them. Um, And so I would just encourage, like, even if you are in a red state like Nebraska, there are battles being fought there to slow down the awful things that Republicans are doing. If you're in a purple state like Wisconsin, they just flipped their Supreme Court. That's very important. But if you're in a blue state like Massachusetts, it's important for us to not get complacent. Um, yes, we had a Democrat win our governorship election, but like the Republican who was running, um, wanted to make it so that way teenagers need signed permission slips from their parents to visit public libraries. Um, and we should not just like assume that other people are going to vote blue if we're in blue states. And there's this sense of complacency I've seen, and is it's not complacency amongst people in the party, as much as it's just like a general cultural attitude that I don't know the solution to, because a few people on the state committee aren't going to be able to fix that. You can't
Hmm.
legislate making people care.
Well, yeah, and I feel like a lot of people right now are learning trans issues for the first time.
Yeah,
Um, there's a lot of ignorance, people that didn't know of trans people before, and I think within time, things are going to get better and improve. But we're just kind of in a period where we just have to educate a lot of people on like the very, very basics of how trans issues work. And it also doesn't help that a lot of our elected officials are just a lot older.
yeah.
Um,
I mean,
like,
but again, I would say that's the federal versus state divide. There
mhm,
are like, in order to even be in the Senate, you have to be, was it like 25?
mhm,
35, I can't remember. Um, it's going to be older people because you don't get there without having served in your state legislature. But that also means that like you can, um, there are like a number of state reps in Massachusetts who are like only 10 years older than me. And like there are people in my government that I can joke about internet culture with, and that's not happening with 70 or 80-year olds something Ed Mark and Elizabeth Warren.
mhm. Yeah, I get what you mean. And it's got to be frustrating to like know what the answer is to a lot of these things that's going on, but and having the, the levels of government that benefit it, and then just being like kind of stuck, you know?
Yeah, I often feel like I'm banging my head against the wall.
All right. So, being where you're at now, has it been hard to see how Republicans and stuff have been really cruel since you're involved in this process?
Yeah, so I know, like, in terms of my personal life, I grew up around Trumpy Republicans, and that, like, it's hard for me to. I know for me, because I grew up with that, it's very hard for me to disconnect interactions with Republicans now versus all the stuff growing up with the Trump people in my life, and
Mm,
realizing that I was like trans in like 2017 or 18 or whenever it was, and like that's not a fun environment
mm,
to do that in. Um and so like whenever I see Republicans in the state, it is very frustrating. Whenever I see Republicans doing things in other states, it is demoralizing to an extent. But like again, I have to admit that I come from things with a Massachusetts perspective. I come from a blue state perspective. And I understand that comes with a lot of things that are very easy to take for granted. So like, but that means that my job, the place that I can have the biggest impact on people's lives, is fighting for trans and reproductive healthcare refugee laws. I know last fall we passed it. We, as in the state government, passed a package to make it so that way people can't get prosecuted. But also so that way doctors can't get prosecuted, because that's another thing that states are going after. Where they will not only say like, oh, you traveled to another state and you got an abortion or HRT, and so we're putting out an arrest warrant for you. They will also try to put an arrest warrant out for the doctor who wasn't even in their jurisdiction. And so it has to be like, we have to be very clear that like Massachusetts isn't going to recognize these arrest warrants. But also it doesn't go far enough. There are a number of things that we should be doing, and I definitely wish that there was more support of in the party and in our, well, not in the party. So here's the interesting divide. There are policies that I'm going to say I wish there's more support for. The resolution passed with over 90% support, but we had when the party voted on it, but they still aren't law. We need to make it so that our that there is a pathway for out of state students coming to our public school systems. If they are coming because they're fleeing oppression due to being trans or needing reproductive health care, they should not have to pay out of state tuition. There needs to be a way to make it so that way they can, instead of having to be residents in the state for, I think it's like 4 years or something like that, to be counted as in state, we need to make it 30 days. We need to make it so that way someone can get here and fill out the paperwork and then just get processed as fast as they can. That would save people $120,000, because most trans people, when they come to Massachusetts, it's not because they have accepting parents bringing them here. It's because they are going through our public school or public higher education system to be able to get away without entirely breaking their family ties with their family from a red state. So making it so that way people can get in-state tuition, that saves $120,000 of moving to Massachusetts, which is a big deal, right? And then the other thing is that even so, like, getting from Tennessee to Massachusetts, that's not cheap. Like, if you have a car, well, then you have to pay for gas and like a hotel, because you can't do that all in one stint. If you like taking a private, like getting a bus ticket on one of our country's private bus companies, those tickets are expensive. And even when you get here, you're like, where are you going to sleep when you get to the state? And so we need the state to be offering microgrants for people who are fleeing oppression. So if you are someone in like Tennessee, for example, and you're trans, it should be that there's someone in the Massachusetts state government that you can contact and say, I need to get out of this situation because this is a threat to my life. And the state needs to be like, you want to be a taxpayer for us? Cool, here's $1,000.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because I fled the state. I fled Florida, and I came to Georgia. And that one of the biggest things was costs. Like, I had to open a GoFundMe to be able to afford to get here. And looking at the state of Florida now, it is not safe for trans people to be there. It's not. And figuring out the dynamics of finding a place to live, hoping that you can raise enough money in order to be able to even make that move. There's a lot of dynamics in it that are hard. And on top of that, you're fleeing your home. And that is hard. Like, even when you have the funds and everything else, there's a lot of emotions that go into it. of just having to leave that, and making that process any bit easier is definitely going to be helpful for people's mental health, especially because moving is already really stressful. And then you add on top of it like super fascist, oppressive governments, anti-democratic practices. Like in Florida, a lot of the anti-trans stuff they passed, they didn't even do it through the legislature. DeSantis assigned a medical board and was like, here you go. And that's
Yeah,
it. It was done. And it was just like, what do you do against that? You just have to leave, unfortunately. And having safe states where people can go to and have that safe space to be and be supported is really, really important to have right now, because we're genuinely having refugees from other states.
Yeah, and that's why I every single time I talk about this with other like politicos and electeds in the state, I always use the term refugee because they always like to feel good about supporting refugees coming in through our southern border. And I'm like, there are like fascist Republican run states right now in our own country and people are fleeing here. But like as a matter of personal opinion, I don't think that Massachusetts is really a trans safe state until no one has to start a GoFundMe in order to run away to here. That should not be a part of the equation. And I understand like that is something that is more to the left of a lot of people in government. And so I know like that's probably not going to happen this year. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to be obnoxious about it not happening this year to everyone I know.
Yeah, no, definitely make those pushes for things like that, because we are genuinely having refugees from other states, and the type of legislation that people like Tennessee and Florida are doing will lead to the death of trans people there. And it really is a life or death situation that people really, really have to get out and get to states where they can be safe. And that's not always an easy process, but we'll move on to, have you had any type of discrimination issues, like that you in being in the position that you are right now? Have you had anyone that's not really been accepting, or any issues with that?
Not well, so I like limit myself to people who aren't going to be like assholes to me. But like
That makes sense.
so I when I do things in like the government, I don't talk to Republicans there. I was like, this is not, I'm not going to change your mind, and I don't want to put myself through this. The reason why I know some people like go to the college Republicans meetings to just like see what they're doing, and I'm like, why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah.
So I don't go into those types of spaces. In terms of like the mass Democratic Party, like people who are in leadership there, there has never been a point where I haven't felt like people there weren't supportive. I think that there's a lot of issues, and I don't think any queer person on the state committee is going to disagree with me with this, but there's a lot of issues where people just are ignorant because they don't know better. But like all of them, I haven't come across someone who wasn't trying, and maybe because I have because of my upbringing, my expectations are on the floor. But like I am happy with that because it means that those are people who I can talk to and connect with and build those bridges. And like I said, like the two things that I said with in terms of like trans safe states, like that passed the Democratic State Convention with over 90% of the vote. I think it's 94% of Democratic delegates voted yay on supporting microgrants and in-state tuition, as well as everything that we did end up passing. So I think that the state Democratic Party is very good. I know that other state Democratic parties have a lot of issues. But so I don't want to generalize that. I am self-aware about the problems that the party has. But I think that the solution to those problems is by getting involved. To go on a slight tangent, because I think this is really important. But what when you asked me what got me involved in politics, I talked about like the motivations, but I think that it is important for people like me to talk about the how I got involved in politics. Because I I didn't get in politics because I wasn't in Democratic Party leadership because I had family in Democratic Party leadership. I mean, I have extended family, but my parents didn't let me talk to them because they were afraid that they would make me a Democrat. Well, joke's on them. um, I got onto the committee without their help. Um, uh, but like, so I got involved in internal party politics after the 2020 election. It was like March of 2021. Um and I started in 2020. I helped volunteer for some campaigns. Um Notably the Alex Morse campaign. That was a big mess. Uh, that still affects a lot of the politics that is happening across the entire state today, even though it's a single U.S. House district. Um, but the issue is that we build these campaigns, and especially when they're for candidates, we build like these giant campaign apparatuses for progressive candidates, and then they either they win or they lose their primary. And then like it goes dead. Like we had a Slack, and the Slack was, I mean, like I've never seen a Slack be as active as a Discord server, but this Slack was fairly active in terms of how Slacks go. And then the day after election day, nothing. And like there have been like high like director level people from that campaign who I have after election day have never sent a message and I've never heard from again. And I'm just like, as a then was I 19 yet? As a still like teenager, trans person, I'm like, hey, what the fuck? Where'd you all go? I like we still have battles to fight. And so I was like, if the campaign's not here, then I'm just going to see like what's happening with like my local party. Um, and then I come across the wonderful, amazing knowledge that my local Democratic Party didn't even recharter. Like it didn't refile to like exist. And so it just like where I lived, there was no local Democratic Party. And so I was like, so this is like fucked. And um and so I was just like, who can I talk to? And so I reached out to like people who I knew from the campaign, and they got me connected with people on the Democratic State Committee. And I was like, I want a local party. And they're like, cool, you want a local party? Here's the local party. And so I went from not doing anything to chairing my local Democratic Party in like 3 weeks. And the thing is that this can happen in most places because in Massachusetts, only like half of the local parties exist. And so like if you are like especially in rural areas, if you're a trans person in Massachusetts and you want like a really progressive local Democratic Party, like you could probably just sign some paperwork, get a few people in a room, and do it. And chair it. And when you're the chair of the local Democratic Party, well, you're the one person who gets to speak on behalf of the entire local party for anything you want. So I'm trying the local Democratic Party. I can say anything I want. And that is what local Democrats think, because I'm the local Democratic Party. So radical lefty Democratic Party, it exists. And so like this is a thing where a lot of our party apparatus, especially in Massachusetts, the local party apparatus has not been well maintained. And if people went towards focusing on local things, we could see a large shift. And so you don't get to, well, Twitter's makes everything messy. But like traditionally, you don't
Yeah.
get to the point of having influence over like what actually happens in federal policy without going through the local party and then getting to the state party. And because I've been on the state party, our next meeting on April 24th is going to mark the 1 year anniversary of me being on the state party, or the state party's governing committee. And before that, I was chair of my ward committee for a year. And so I went from like doing nothing to being on the governing committee of the state party, in like a year and 3 months. Because it's actually really easy to do. Because there's like always just like people just like resigning constantly. There's a lot, like everywhere else. There's turnover in the state committee. And so there's almost always a seat that is open. And then at some point, like I might run for like delegate to the Democratic National Convention, or maybe I hope one day I'll get to be on the DNC and be one of the first non-binary people on the DNC. But like that doesn't happen if you don't start at your local party. But also local things you can impact a lot more. I know I'm going on rants, but there's a few key things that like I want to make sure that everyone knows.
You're fine.
Because of my experiences. Because a lot of politics is like actually really simple, but just pretends to be complicated to intimidate people. So it is important to vote in every election, right? Like I'm sure that's something you heard, and a lot of the
Yep. I definitely agree that voting in every election is important, especially when we have all this anti-trans rhetoric that is everywhere. If DeSantis lost his election, I probably would still be able to live in Florida right now. And that election, I remember back in, I think it was 2016. It was a while ago. It's like 30,000 votes. Yeah. He won by 30,000 votes. That's it. That's all it took.
Yeah. But like
and it's frustrating when I see people like talk about how like, oh, well, I'm just one person. I can't really impact that much. I don't know if I'm going to vote. And it's like, it takes you like, no, just go vote. Just go do it.
But part of the thing though is that like, I know a lot of like centrists and liberals in the party, they tell you, you need to vote in every election because democracy is a bus stop, not an Uber. And that's the most bullshit reason to vote in every election. I'm going to tell you the real reason to vote in every election. When you vote, the parties know, we get given that information by the local governments, by the town clerks, and we have a giant database. We don't obviously like we don't see who you voted for because we live in a healthy democracy, but we know it is publicly available information who requested a ballot. And this is important because if you didn't vote and you go onto the Secretary of State website and you see that you were marked as voted, that's how we catch voter fraud. But this helps the parties too because we like information. So I was working with sorry?
I was going to say, I was going to move on to what goals you have and what you want to aspire to. Maybe even past this position or things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So just I will give like the 30-second version of the point I was trying to make though, which is that uh when candidates run for office, they don't have the ability to talk to every voter. I was working for a city council candidate. We had 17,000 people in our district who are registered to vote. That's impossible to do when you're like three people on a Zoom call together. And so I made a filtered list of everyone who voted in the last 6 elections, or if they were too young, voted in every election since they became eligible to vote. Now, 17,000 people, that was less than 300 people. We talked to all of them before we made our candidates platform. So you as an individual really matter if you can vote in 6 elections in a row, because because that's when you get candidates calling your cell phone number, like personally. Um, I think the goals that I have, to actually answer your question, the goals that I have are that um I want to make it so that way Massachusetts is a state that everyone can go to. Um that is especially if they're fleeing oppression, that is a very complex, that is a multifaceted problem, because it is microgrants, it is making it so that um it's affordable with our universities, but it's also addressing our housing deficit. Massachusetts, even if we made housing free for everyone and costs like money stopped existing, we'd still have about 50,000 homeless people because we do not have enough houses and apartment units in the state. Um, so we need to be YIMBY as fuck. We need to build apartment buildings, livable apartment buildings. We need to raise the standard of what livable means. Um, we need accessible cities. We need accessible college campuses. My college campus has about 14,000 toilets. Only 10 are wheelchair accessible. That is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
We need communities and public buildings and private buildings as well. But we need everywhere to be accessible to everyone. Um, we need to update our open meeting law to require that all public board meetings allow a hybrid option, um, because it's not enough for to just limit public comment to people who can get there in person. Um, and another thing is that when we have public comments, when we have like community committees to solve things, it is always disproportionately people who don't have the time to be there. And so that's people who don't have a second job. That's people who aren't working and being a student at the same time. So when we move towards things such as possibly taking up public utilities, probably not going past this session, but I can dream. The public utilities bill says we're going to have our utilities run by our communities. Well, these community committees aren't going to be representative if we do not pay the people on them. We need to make it so that uh DIY HRT is decriminalized. It is, I think that everyone should have the right to go to a doctor. But DIY HRT is a necessity to exist in a world where doctors aren't affordable.
Mm-hmm.
And where it just like isn't within people's resources to do. So not only does DIY HRT not need to be something that isn't criminalized, it needs to be something where there is lots of public documentation of how to do it safely. I know that there at least used to be a DIY HRT website. That website needs to be hosted by mass.gov.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to be a thing. And again, like hopeful, uh, optimistic even. Um, and we need to also make sure that um our communities, how do it? I mean, there's so many things. There's public transit, there's housing. Uh, I tend to not think about like federal policies as much because I don't feel like I'm at a state where I can influence whether or not something gets over the finishing line. But in terms of the federal policy that I pay attention to somewhat is Ed Markey's Globe Act, which would make it so that the State Department has to consider the impacts on LGBTQ civil rights in all the different countries that they interact with.
Mm-hmm.
And that the impact on civil rights has to be a part of every decision that they make. We need to I again, like, I love our AOCs and Bernie Sanders is of the federal Congress, but we need to change Medicare for all to include coverage for transition care. There is no reason why Bernie Sanders shouldn't be including transition care as one of the guaranteed coverages in Medicare for all. There's this is a thing that is like common sense, but wasn't even in like the Massachusetts state version of the bill until like this session. Because I and a few friends made us think about it, but again, this is comes from ignorance. The state rep who filed the bill literally didn't know that even in Massachusetts, transition care isn't guaranteed coverage. And so unless it's put in the bill, it's not going to be guaranteed. Um, and again, that goes to like issues of ignorance and democratic leaders. But I think that the if I could make one, if one thing could come true, it's that I want to overrun all of our like public institutions with queer people. If there is a college Sims chapter that is filled with 6-7 centrists, get 6 or 7 of the most radical left people that you can find that will support you on trans rights, and take over the chapter. Chapter elections are coming up. Like, RSs tend to elect their boards, at least in Massachusetts. I assume it's fairly universal. We tend to elect our boards at the end of spring semesters. Like, that's the thing. Like, do you want your local college gyms chapter to be putting out press releases saying that they support the most pro-trans things possible? Well, it's not that hard. It's because only 6 people show up. I don't know if anyone else has or anyone's done like D&D, and like the scheduling conflicts with D&D and trying to get 4 people to do D&D together every single week. The same thing exists in college gyms, like, and to a greater extent, because at least with D&D, everybody wants to be there, right? And aren't there out of a sense of obligation. So like a lot of these places, like, they don't have. If you can get 6 people in a room together, you can do a lot of things. I got at my college campus last year when we were doing elections, we got 6 of us in a college basement doing Discord calls. Got 2 candidates for lieutenant governor and 2 candidates for attorney general to agree to publicly support decriminalizing sex work. That's what 6 people in a dorm basement can do if you are able to be known as the people who actually show up to things. And so yeah, that's what I would like to see. It's just more of local activism and understanding that at the state level, at the local level, you're going to have a lot more power. People will listen to you also because, like, here's the other thing. If you believe in disruptive protests, and I think that they do have value to a certain extent, focus on local people. Your town councilor doesn't have a bunch of staff going through their emails, and most states require them to publish their email address online. Use that information as you will.
Definitely. So I really appreciate you coming on today and speaking with me about your experiences. It's definitely enlightening to hear about the experiences of like local level stuff. So definitely really appreciate it. And I think we're gonna go ahead and end our conversation here. So if you have any socials you want people to follow, you can certainly give those out. But that's up to you.
I am pretty inactive most places online. I am trying to de-Twitter myself because it is bad for my mental health. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty open about the fact that like I still struggle with like issues with depression. And so I
That's
not the
fair.
place for me.
Oh, good.
So but I do want to be easily accessible. Uh I'm on your Discord server. I'm on Vanilla Opinions Discord server. Just uh feel free to send me a friend request, send me a DM. I'm a busy college student. I don't know when I will necessarily respond, but I will try my best. And I want to just be available. And if you want to get involved in politics, I will do everything I can to help. I have like even if you're not from Massachusetts, I have a friend from Michigan who want to get to know how to get involved with Michigan Dems. Um, I don't know anything about Michigan Dems, but I have friends on the DNC who I can ask. So please, I am a resource. And I know that is not too common in democratic politics. So I hope to be the change I want to see in the world.
That's great. I think that's something great to end on. So thank you so much for coming on, and you have a great night, okay?
Of course, yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. You have a good one. Alrighty. I'm going to go ahead and probably take about like a probably 5 to 10 minute break. And then we're going to go ahead and start on our last topic. Last topic today is going to be in reference to the trans care ban in Missouri. And then we're going to end the stream there. So we're just going to go on a break for probably about 10, 20 minutes or so. And then we'll go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and put us into Be Right Back, and we'll start soon. There we go. All right. Hello, everybody. I am back. I'm hoping that the stream is still up. But what we're going to go ahead and move on to now is the issues happening in Missouri. If you guys are not aware, the Missouri State Attorney General just essentially banned gender-affirming care for most trans adults via emergency rule. So I'll go ahead and zoom this in a little bit so y'all can see better. But yeah, so basically the requirements are 3 years of dysphoria, 18 months of therapy sessions, and it doesn't allow for people with autism or depression. So as far as what this is, in my opinion, what it is no worries. What is happening within the United States with this anti-trans movement is more than just a random event that's happening. It's not like one day Republicans just woke up and decided to ban this care. What is happening is that Republicans are dead set on banning gender-affirming care because they are Christian nationalists. Now, as far as what that means, what it means is that there are a group of people within the United States that essentially want to push things back a lot. They want to legislate the Bible completely, and they think that the Bible applies to current day politics and that they need to legislate it or legislate that policy because that's what God demands. One of the core parts of Christian nationalism was the abortion movement. The abortion movement is sort of really based in religion in terms of being against abortion. And the same thing goes for being LGBT. They hate us because they literally think that their God tells them that we are evil. So they will do anything in their power to push the suffering of basically people that are born AFAB for abortion type issues and also anyone who's LGBT. The goal is our eradication. That is what their goal is. They don't want us to live. They want us to die. So that is what is happening with this ruling that we're having within the United States. That is the goal. They want us gone. And that is frustrating and it sucks, but that's genuinely what they desire, is for that to happen. So, going into some of the details of this, this is an emergency ruling, which means that the Attorney General just decided, hey, there's an emergency of trans care. I'm implementing this now. Now, the thing is, there are issues with this. Obviously, I've seen emergency rulings like this be overturned before. So I think because of the nature of what this is, I think this is likely to be overturned. I think that is what is most likely going to happen. I don't think this is going to stay in place. But what it does mean is if you are in Missouri, I would recommend start making plans to leave if you can, or get with local LGBT people near you that can help you leave. Because as it goes right now, I do not believe that the red states like these ones are going to be safe to really remain as a trans person, because these emergency rules, like, yeah, maybe it'll get overturned in a little bit, but in the meantime, people are going to die. And it really is unfortunate that the lives of trans people are just basically pawns for Republicans right now who want to utilize us to win elections to further just radicalize the country to push even harder. Like we literally had churches that like these type of Christian nationalism, type people go to Uganda and push for being gay to be illegal. Like, these people hate us. They want us dead, and they are not going to stop. So, which means that we have to not stop either. Now, as far as the impact with individual people, this is something that Eli got emailed by this person here on Twitter. It's a hell of a thing to wake up to. So I'm going to go ahead and read this letter. As of April 27th, I will not be able to fill prescriptions for gender-affirming hormone therapy. I do not currently have the processes in place to defend my license to practice gender-affirming care should the state investigate me under the new Attorney General emergency rule. I will be trying to resolve this as quickly as possible, but I do not know how long that'll take. In the meantime, I recommend requesting a 90-day supply of your medications. I also recommend scheduling an appointment with me every 3 to 6 months so we can work on building the documentation that is required for the Attorney General emergency rule. If this rule is overturned, I will reinstate your plan of care immediately. This is the reality that trans people have to face. The reality that their care can just be overturned and on a dime of a judge by an attorney general. And it's fascist, it's authoritarian, and it is incredibly sad. So like I said, get together with people that are near you and do everything that you can to protect yourself. Also, there are HRT clinics along borders of states. So if you are stuck in Missouri, I would recommend looking into, those clinics along the borders of states and see if those can give you some assistance. So yeah, stay safe. And I really hope that everyone in Missouri, can get through this. And if you can't, definitely I recommend joining local LGBT places near you and working with people, because really in these type of moments, what is going to help the most is having local people near you that can assist you in these really, really hard times. So that's where I'm going to end the segment here. Thank you all for tuning in for the stream today. I really do appreciate it. This is the first time I've ever streamed on YouTube, and it definitely came with its technical problems. So I'm definitely going to be looking into my crash logs and seeing what the crashes were from. But thank you for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'm going to probably